Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Laura Sturm.
Hi, welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Laura Sturm.
And I'm Josh Rohr. Welcome to 92. So I have some frustrations. I have some grievances to air. How about that?
Ooh,
Festivus.
All right.
That's a Seinfeld reference for anybody that knows.
I got it.
Did you? That's good.
I did.
So not really, I guess it's kind of airing of grievances, but hopefully just kind of like putting information out there. So a lot of this is stuff that's been going around social media rumor wise, which is frustrating enough as it is, because, you know, if somebody says something on social media, it spreads like wildfire and becomes everybody's version of truth, I guess. Specifically referring to OMTs, out of meet testing with our registered testing protocol lifters, which are top tier lifters, but anybody also that has pro card status. So basically what happened, there were a couple lifters that were OMT'd recently by USA Powerlifting, along with a lot of other lifters that are in the registered testing protocol. But two lifters specifically are on the nominations for IPF Worlds. And basically somebody from Powerlifting America, I don't know who, has told these athletes that if they take a drug test from USA Powerlifting, they'll be ineligible for IPF Worlds. So the rumor got started around that USA Powerlifting is specifically targeting lifters going to Worlds to try to get them suspended. And that's just not accurate at all, because we're testing everybody that's in the registered testing protocol. So the next part that came up with that is, you know, they're clearly going to IPF Worlds. Why are we testing them? Well, to be in the registered testing protocol, those lifters have to update their locator form and basically subscribe to it, which they have done, meaning that they want to stay in the registered testing protocol with USA Powerlifting to maintain their pro card status. So everybody that was tested literally has been filling out their locator form and subscribing, basically saying that they are consenting to being in this protocol. So long story short, they are being told by somebody in Powerlifting America, supposedly, that they need to refuse the test or they can't go to IPF Worlds. But my biggest issue with that is, so you're literally, this is going back to the whole drug testing bullshit with the IPF. Like, if going back to before we even split, if we only do third-party WADA testing at the national level, we're good, we're compliant. But if we do that, but then do additional testing at the local level ourselves, as a whole, we're not compliant. So basically what they're telling lifters is, if they take a drug test that's not part of a WADA compliant organization, even if they pass, then that's essentially making them ineligible to compete at IPF Worlds, is basically what they're telling them.
Is this true?
Lifters have been refusing the test because somebody has told them this. So I've been told it's somebody from Powerlifting America has told them this. In fact, there are a couple statements that I'll read. So this is the source of my information on this. One of them is from a Facebook post that Joanne Craig posted, and she's the chair of the OMT program for USA Powerlifting. Right. So I'll just read it, quote, I'll just quote it. I'll read it. She said on Sunday, "Enough of the BS Instagram posts just for the sake of likes. The rumor that Powerlifting America athletes are being targeted with OMT testing is an outright lie. All athletes with pro status are in the registered testing protocol. They have filled out their locator forms. All of them are and will be tested out of meet. To not test a Powerlifting America athlete would be biased. Several Powerlifting America athletes chose to remain in the registered testing protocol in order to keep their pro status, period. Regarding THC, that's another thing that was going around, is that we're testing for THC again. Well, that's in the WADA drug testing panels. So like everybody's testing for it. It's just not prohibited out of competition, but you're still testing for it. So anyway, to finish her quote, regarding THC, come on, read the rules. All WADA tests test for THC, but it is not prohibited out of competition. So what's the deal with this remark? So that's the end of her quote there. Thoughts, Laura?
So I'm kind of like, okay. So I understand that people need to be tested. That's for sure. But if you're part of Powerlifting America and you're going to IPF Worlds, is the IPF saying that if you get drug tested through another organization, even if you pass or fail, that you can't lift at Worlds? Because that part is what seems wrong to me. Like, why would IPF care?
Because they don't want people lifting with us because we do our own thing, is my assumption. So USA Powerlifting put out a statement as well. I'm going to read that too, just for context, and this provides a little more clarity as well. And this was posted on May 8th. Says, we are aware of the false rumors being spread by those who believe we are targeting lifters for OMTs in order to suspend them. Fact, 2 athletes had accepted being placed in the USA Powerlifting registered testing protocol in order to maintain their pro card of eligibility. Fact, these athletes have been keeping their whereabouts current in order to be tested. Fact, when they were approached by a USA Powerlifting drug testing officer for an out-of-meet test, they contacted an administrator of Powerlifting America. The athletes were told by that Powerlifting America administrator that they must refuse their drug test or they would not be allowed to compete with them. Fact, there are no published rules by WADA that state that athletes can only be tested through a WADA agency or they lose their eligibility. This is a Powerlifting America and the IPF trying to control lifters and dictate what a lifter can and cannot do. Imagine you are part of the NCAA, NHL, high school powerlifting, or even your job who conducts drug tests, but now have to refuse a drug test with those agencies because Powerlifting America / IPF says only WADA can, or you lose your ability to compete. Clearly not true, nor will you find these made up rules anywhere. There's 3 more paragraphs that I'm not going to read because it's basically more of just an emotional response versus stating like the facts. So people can get on there and read that if they want. I don't think it was necessary, but I understand it because I am frustrated as hell as well. And if I were to write the statement, as soon as this happened, I probably would have said some things that weren't necessarily productive. So yeah, it's just frustrating because USA Powerlifting is being made to look like the bad guy for actually drug testing. Let's not forget that aspect.
Wow, that's just crazy shit. It really is.
Yeah, no, it's such drama. But literally, like, these athletes were told not to accept the drug test, essentially take a failure with USA Powerlifting if you want to go to IPF Worlds. But the irony of that is if they take the test and pass, that still makes them ineligible for IPF Worlds according to what they're being told, which is not a rule anywhere. It's something made up.
Yeah, I think I'd be like, all right, drug test me, and if you make me ineligible for the IPF Worlds because of this, then go fuck yourselves.
That's what I'm saying.
God damn. I mean, yeah. That's some fucking drama. That's just crazy. Just when you think it's calming down.
Yeah. Oh, there's more.
Nope.
There's
more.
So this one, and I hate to even drop this guy's name, but I'm going to, because he's getting caught up in the mix in the middle of it all, and it's nothing by his own fault. Gino. So Gino is this past weekend announced at the Canadian Powerlifting Union Nationals, and as soon as there's pictures of him, people are posting all over, welcome back to the IPF family and all this stuff, Gino. Basically implying that he's leaving USA Powerlifting and going the IPF route. I have not talked to Gino. I have seen a lot of social media posts, but my understanding is he's literally just announcing at a Canadian Nationals, which, so what? And my thing is, if he is announcing at an IPF meet, so what? Like, I don't care.
Right.
He can do what he wants. But
he doesn't get paid for either. So
right.
Right.
But
Go
basically
I mean,
some of these posts are implying that he's left you. So again, I'm saying implying,
right.
It doesn't explicitly say this, but it's implying he's left USA Powerlifting and is back in the IPF umbrella. One, the Canadian Nationals is under the IPF umbrella, but it's still Canadian Nationals, not an IPF event. Again, if it was an IPF event, who gives a shit? He can announce there. I don't care. But it's basically turning it into a whole social media shit show that the people are all up in arms. Like, why is Gino leaving USA Powerlifting? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think he is. Again, I can't speak for him. I haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks, but I don't believe that to be the case. So here to state his case is Gino. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
That would have been awesome. We do need to get him back on though, and talk about more lighthearted stuff, not this bullshit. But
yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway, I have one more gripe I'm going to bring up.
One more. There's more.
This one is personal, and I'm gonna mention the guy's name again, but trying to stay, I guess, out of the emotions of it all and just list the facts. Mr. Steve Mann, who I've considered a good friend for quite a while, is the subject of this conversation. But the context. So in 2014, I created an Instagram account for USA Powerlifting Collegiate Nationals, and I ran the 2015 Collegiate Nationals. So it was used to kind of promote that. Each year, I passed on the login information to that Instagram account to the meet director of the USA Powerlifting Collegiate Nationals every year. And, with the understanding that gets passed on to the meet director each year. Each year it's a new meet director. Steve Mann had the USA Powerlifting Collegiate Nationals in 2019, I think it was, and then it got moved to 2020 with COVID or something like that. Anyway, he was the essentially second to last one to run it. Travis Werner had it in Louisiana the year after, but the account never got passed on to Travis. But anyway, backing up a little bit. So when Steve was running it, my email address was still listed as the contact point. People were clicking the email button in Instagram and sending questions about nationals. So I sent Steve a message. I'm like, hey, can you just put your email on there? That way the emails go directly to you. He's like, yeah, sure. So that was kind of a mistake, I guess, on my part, because I wasn't expecting him to hijack the whole thing. So anyway, fast forward, the account never got passed on to Travis. USA Powerlifting took over running Collegiate Nationals. So once we took over running it again, I sent him a message on August 30th of 2021. I got a timeline here, so I'm listing facts. On Facebook Messenger said, hey, now that USA Powerlifting's taken over, can you send me the login back? That way we can continue to run this page for the USA Powerlifting Collegiate Nationals. No response. Sent him a text message on December 21st, an Instagram message on October 27th, Instagram message on April 21st, text message on April 21st, and I sent an Instagram message and a Facebook message again on May 9th. And with those platforms, you can obviously see when people have read it, and he has read these messages and never once responded. But the kicker of all this is I was made aware that he has this USA Powerlifting Collegiate Nationals Instagram account for sale.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just want to publicly say I am disappointed in Steve Mann publicly.
Can you call him on the phone? Like instead of messengers and texts and Instagrams, do you think he'd actually answer the phone call?
I don't know. We'll try. I'll give him a call.
Yeah, but still, and he's got it for sale.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's trying to sell it.
yeah. Well, you
Um,
know what? I'd also, if you don't get him on the phone, man to man, I'd call
Rotoman.
contact Instagram. Yeah, Rotoman. Then contact Instagram and have them shut down the account because that's really not cool.
It's just, I guess the part that irritates me about it is he doesn't even respond to me. Like, so clearly he knows he's in the wrong with all this, but just own up to it. Like,
I don't even know. I mean, it sounds petty to me.
I know it is.
It sounds pretty petty. But boy, like it's powerlifting at the end of the day. This rift happened and like, let's just keep moving on. It's a core values split and it is what it is, but you don't need to get nasty about it. Nobody needs to get nasty, but that's selling the account is weird. That's weird.
So,
Boy.
That's been a depressing kind of airing of grievances, this first part of the podcast. So, I'm going to move on now that I'm like, I feel like I got pulled into like gossip. Like I felt like I needed to say all those things because I have strong opinions on all of it. I think a lot of it's bullshit, to be honest. But they roped me into talking about it. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back
in. The way I stay out of social media drama is I got off social media pretty much completely. It's on my phone, but only if I have to search for it. Like, and I only use it if I'm like bored at an airport and I need to look at like pictures, or if I'm in MARTA and I'm scared because there's some guy yelling about how he's going to shoot us up, but I want to pretend I'm looking at pictures. That's actually happened. Then I pull up Instagram. But other than that, that's it.
So yeah, I mean, I'm on social media. Excuse me, but I'm not like always scrolling through it. I was contacted by multiple people about all of these things,
Right.
Through email or direct message. So I was made aware of it through not organically coming across it, I guess.
Right. Well, and as a business owner, you kind of have to be on social media because it's an outlet. That's how you engage with your audience. But I don't know. There's a lot of toxicity and drama on social media that now that I live out in the country, I'm like, fuck that.
and
I miss some things though.
Yeah, you do, but you're probably better for it though. So that is my official response: is read the statement by USA Powerlifting, and what Joanne Craig put out on her Facebook page is pretty much sums it up. I don't think there's too much more to say about that. So,
wow. Hey, and huge kudos to Joanne Craig for being the OMT, goddess for years now.
Yeah,
that's a big, thankless position, and especially over the last, year or however long it's been that this has been going on. I mean,
yeah, it's a lot of work. Like, yeah, she definitely deserves a lot of props for that because that's and I'm pretty sure like you either have just a very business like interaction with people, or it's like the complaint department that she runs. Like, I don't know that people ever give her compliments or ever say, "Hey, great job." It's either like, just very, all right, do this, do this, all right, thanks, and then it's like, why the heck, blah 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 blah. So I'm sure she's always getting like,
she's getting the shit all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, so anyone listening to this should reach out to Joanne Craig and send her a thank you for all you do message.
Yeah.
Just because it's a good idea.
Just because. Yeah.
Just because it's a shitty thing that she has to deal with all the time. And truthfully, you should reach out to your athletes rep and all of your EC and do that too.
Yeah. I just want a hug is what I want.
Oh, oh, give Josh hugs. So the NGB is coming up. I mean, that was my bridge into the NGB.
Yeah, it's coming up. So this Friday is the deadline. We talked about it last week, but this Friday is the deadline to nominate people for athletes rep, EC positions, and president. And it's also the last day to nominate people for honorary awards. So if you want to do that, you can go to usapowerlifting.com, scroll down in the recent news, and there's the NGB announcement that you can click on, and it has links to do all of those things. But even more importantly, I think, is to try to attend the NGB meeting if you can. It's Monday, June 13th from 9 to 5 at the venue of Vegas, or venue of Nationals in Las Vegas. I just think it's really important for people in the organization to see kind of the behind the scenes and the stuff that goes on with the running of the organization, and just kind of see how that's structured. Like I've talked to a lot of people that, have attended for the first time, like even last year, and they're just like, I had no idea like all of that stuff is happening and needs to be discussed, and what exactly goes into running an organization of this size, and and the depth of, like, I mean, I'm going back to it again, but like the scope of our drug testing program, like it's very elaborate. So yeah, that's my pitch. Try to attend that if you can. There's a lot to give insight. There's a lot of insight to be learned, I guess. Insight to be learned.
I mean,
insight to be.
I've been to the NGB meeting a few times, and I actually thought it was super interesting.
I think it's super interesting. I mean, there's so much going on, and you get to kind of hear all of the. I mean, because the meeting happens once a year, so like you kind of get the update. Like a lot of the voting members are going to get kind of the updates, year round, but for just the general member that competes, or coaches or refs or whatever, that's not a voting member, is not always privy to some of this information. So being able to attend the meeting and kind of get up to speed on what has happened over the last year is, I think, very important to kind of understand just the bigger scope of what the organization is and how it's run.
I always thought it was interesting when there was like something that was proposed, and then there'd be like, you'd get to hear the arguments for and against, and the little, what was, everyone get like 3 minutes or something to say something, and then it goes on to the next person.
Robert's Rules of Order, which I don't know what that is even, but that's what's followed, and seems like everybody else there knows what that means, because it's very strict and followed. And if I ever am talking, I talk until they tell me to stop, and then
or sooner, right? Yeah. And then like they're like, okay, so you can't talk anymore, and then the next person will talk, and then it kind of gets discussed. And then something that I would have voted one way just by reading what was proposed, because of the discussion, I go, oh yeah, no, they're right, I need to vote this other way. So sometimes like that discussion is really the meat of the whole meeting, right? Because you get to hear why some of these things were shot down or approved, and some things that you just don't know the backstory. So I thought that was interesting. So let's move on to the new lifter tip. What do you think? Keeping us on task.
Sure. Yeah, somebody's got to.
All right. So the new lifter tip this week: you learn a lot more by asking about what you don't know versus pretending to know what you don't. If you really want to get better at powerlifting, be a sponge for information and knowledge. It's out there, and often it's free. Agree or disagree?
I agree. Thanks for asking.
I mean, I think that's just I think that's kind of, in life, like a lot of times we go around sometimes pretending we know a little bit more than we don't. And usually it's something that if you have a question, probably other people have a question about it. I mean, being a first-time lifter, I still remember like all of the like terminology. I'm like, what's a flight? I don't see anything flying. What?
Yeah,
what are they
I drove
talking
here
about? Right? What's a flight? What? I don't understand all the, there's a lot of like terminology and things that are like weird when you're brand new. And, we forget, as people that have been around for a while, we forget that the terminology is something that new people are like what the hell does that mean? So if we're speaking different language, just ask what it means. People tell you.
Yeah. And even outside of that, just like, I mean, this can be expanded to programming. It can be expanded to like coaching strategy, like at a meet, like all of those things. I mean,
Right.
I just think that I see a lot of people just like they're almost afraid to ask because they don't want to be known as the person that asks questions or whatever, but that doesn't ever answer your question then. So like, how do you learn if you're not asking? And, I just think it's really important. Like, I mean, I've been doing this for, I don't know what year is this, 2022. I've been doing this for over 20 years, like competing and coaching for over 15 years. And like, I'm still learning. And like, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. Like,
Right.
and it's just like, at some point you have to like, and I would say, if you asked me 15 years ago and you asked me today, like, that day, like, how much do you not know about powerlifting? I'd be like, oh, I know most everything. Well, back then, that's what I would say. Now I'm like, oh, there's a lot I don't know. And I've learned, and that's after learning for 15 years. So I think,
Right.
Nobody knows it all. And, the more you can just kind of be open to learning and from other people, I think the better lifter you're going to be, the better coach you're going to be, all of the above.
Right. Yeah. I mean, true story. I got an email back in the day from Steve P for Bench Worlds, and I thought it was spam. I almost deleted it. It was an invitation to Bench Worlds, and I was like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I almost deleted it. But I asked you, I'm like, what is this? And you're like, oh, you got an invitation to Bench Worlds. I'm like, well, okay, now what is that?
Yeah. So don't
would have been
delete
tragic.
emails.
They're not always spam,
but sometimes they are.
All right. Well, what else is going on with us, Josh?
That's it.
That's it. That's enough. Well, if you were a Team Roar member, you'd be having a really cool Team Roar weekend that would be, on the calendar, hopefully, coming up soon. We're going to have a blast there. I think we're going to podcast from there. So, yeah, benefits of being on a team.
Yeah. So one other little teaser I'll throw out there. I mentioned it a little while ago. One of the guys I used to work with, Richard Seymour, was inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He will actually be joining us next week for the podcast. So
awesome.
Next week's episode will be with Richard Seymour.
Excellent. So cool. So if you have a question for Richard Seymour or Josh Roar, then
shoot us a DM at PL Ballads Podcast or at Team Roar, but probably at PL Ballads Podcast would get less lost in the shuffle. There you go.
All right.
Cool. Let's wrap it up. We're mumbling at this point.
We're mumbling. All right. Catch you all later.
Later.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.